fortunate that my mother was an avid reader and a library goer, and she'd take me to a library which was in the basement of the local school when I was growing up, and I devoured all the Beatrix Potter books. I really connected with Naughty Peter Rabbit. I was a bit of a naughty little child. No. But my other favorite book, which today of all days here in the Boston area, was Blueberries for Sal. I got to see Make Way for Ducklings sculptures in the public garden here in Boston. So today was a highlight, seeing one of my childhood favorite books, and that inspired me one day to do what we're doing.
I guess I have many memories before this event, but probably the thing that sticks in my mind most is having my father read a book to me, because my father only ever read one book to me, and it really sticks in my mind, and it was this book by Ernest Hemingway called The Old Man and the Sea, and I really remember sitting with my father and him reading the chapters to me and looking at the beautiful illustrations, black and white illustrations that were the chapter beginnings, and it's just, I don't know, it was just a special moment, and I guess not necessarily like influential in wanting to write books, but it was just one of those moments that you look back in and you think, wow. You know, and I think now more and more how special it is that fathers should be more involved in reading with their children, because to me it was such an outstanding memory. Just at one point in the writing process, I wasn't happy with where the manuscript was going, and I'd been reading a lot of poetry about horses, and in Australia there was a very famous poet called Banjo Patterson, and he actually had been in the Light Horse. He was never a rider, he was one of the fellows who looked after the horses, but he was passionate about horses, and he's written a very famous Australian poem called The Man from the Snowy River. And I've been reading a lot of the poems. It just seemed to me that one of the ways that this book could better come to life would be if it, not in rhyming verse, but it was written in some sort of prose. So at one point I remember on my computer just writing experiment, and I began experimenting with it, and just in the first day, you know, it was there, and I loved it, and I sent it to my editor, Sue Whiting at Walker Books in Australia, and she loved it too, so I knew I was on the right track. So that was a pretty special moment in the creation of that book. And for you?
And for me, it's going to the real places where the story takes place, where Midnight was born, and to Beersheba in the Middle East, where Midnight was in the last charge, the last cavalry charge. I think all these places brought it to life for me. But as a child growing up, I always wanted my own horse. And I got so connected with Midnight, this horse, I almost felt like she was my horse.
A book that gets into any child's hands that they enjoy is a special moment. And recently we've had a special moment with young children in Washington where they were given a book through the Open Book Foundation, and they said, "Is it for us? Can we keep it?"
You mean like our whole lives?
For our whole lives. It says, and one little girl said, "I have a bookshelf and now I've got something to put on it." Now that to me is the perfect reader. Yeah. Is finding a book that just resonates also with a young reader, a book that they want to hold dear and keep close to them, a book that they hold on to for life, perhaps. And we've all got those books that the idea that books, you know, the things that you read in childhood resonate for you for the rest of your life. So I'm not sure whether there is a perfect reader. It's just that a book finds its way into the world and then finds readers along the way, and those readers hopefully are inspired by stories, inspired by illustrations, and then maybe go on to become illustrators and writers themselves, like us. Way before I was writing books, I was a musician, working in London, where Frane and I, our children were born, and I was a mad keen drummer, and I was getting very good at my craft, and I was working with some incredible musicians in the world. And one day I ended up in a recording studio with a very well-known musician who told me one day, "If you want to be successful as a musician, Mark, you should be a creator." And I thought about what he meant by that. And he was basically saying that I should be writing songs, not just playing them, writing them. And so from that day on, I started to write song lyrics. I would write them on pieces of paper. I would write them in little notebooks. And I just found the idea of just writing things down was really fulfilling. From that process, I wrote my first children's book, and called Magic Movement.
And actually, now thinking about it, I think I never went to art school, and yet I've made over 40 books, and I think what it is just finding your own beat, marching to your own song, basically, and not worrying what other people are doing art-wise. When I was in school, I was never the best artist, and I think just because I still love to paint and draw, and love to read books, that one day I'm doing that. It's just when you find a child that you've illustrated or written a book to, and this book has changed their lives, or maybe taught them to read. For me, it's been very touching. I was hiking up a trail in Montserrat in the Caribbean one day up at the hillside, and coming down the other way was a mother and a young son, and we just happened to talk, and I asked why were they visiting the island. She said, well, this is actually a celebration, because she introduced me to her son. He's never read a book before, but he read a book called My Little Island by someone who used to live here called Frané Lessac, and as a treat and as a celebration, we brought him to the little island where the book takes place. And I just said, well, I'm Frane. And it was just like one of those moments that was just unforgettable.
Both Frane and I work a lot in remote Indigenous communities in Australia where English is the third language. And they really suffer from lack of literacy. And both of us feel really important that, we can't change the world, but if you go up there and work with a young child and inspire them to read and pick up a book, and that stays with them for the rest of their life, imagine what change that can make to that one child. So I think this is why we all make books, whether we're illustrators, writers, editors, marketers. We're all in the children's book industry because we think it's really important, and we think we can make a difference and a change to young people's lives. So that's why we do it.
We luckily get to go to places where our stories are originated. So we've traveled to the place where Midnight was born, and I saw under the tree where Midnight was born, and the household where Guy Haydon, whose horse Midnight was going to be, where he lived, where he grew up. They had archives there holding the letters that were written from the battlefield when he would describe how much he loves his horse and their relationship.
Frane and I love travelling, so the idea of travelling and research is, well, it all is mixed up together. We go to the places where history happened. I sense it even today when I was walking around here. I'm in a place where history happened, and I can almost smell it. It's not really work, is it? Going to places and travelling and going to places where history happened, but it's just one of those great gifts and great things that we're very grateful that we're able to do as far as being writers and illustrators.